Welcome to Crossroads. Court documents could give more details in the assassination attempt against President Donald Trump. Now, a handwritten note from the suspect, Ryan Routh, was submitted to the court by federal prosecutors. It states this, quote, "This was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, but I failed you. I tried my best and gave it all the gumption I could muster." Now, we're now seeing some of the more evidence come out on this case. And I think because we're seeing the evidence, we can actually kind of put together the whole situation a lot better. Let me start first with this letter. Now, this is from the official court document. It says this, quote, "On September 18th, law enforcement was contacted by a civilian witness who stated that Routh had dropped off a box at his residence several months prior. After learning of the September 15th incident at Trump International, the witness opened the box, suggesting, of course, he didn't do it beforehand, which could have meant that he knew about this whole thing and didn't report it. But they note this. The witness stated the box contained ammunition, a metal pipe, we don't know what that is, miscellaneous building materials, tools, 4 phones, and various letters." Now, we don't know the details of all of this yet. Again, if you think metal pipe, a lot of people might think a pipe bomb. We don't actually know if this was anything of that nature. They're not giving us details. We also don't know what the various letters are. They're only telling us about one of them. And it says this, "One handwritten letter addressed to the world stated, among other things, again, that this was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump." Now, they say, quote, "Also, it is up to you now to finish the job, and I will offer $150,000 to whomever can complete the job." Now, what it seems this was kind of a kill switch. It seems this individual, again, submitted this to his friend or this individual months before the actual assassination attempt. And given that, of course, we would assume that, well, maybe, again, he believed he would fail. Maybe he, didn't want to do this in the first place and just wanted to write this thing. The more likely case is this was a kill switch, kind of a contingency plan if he did fail, and he'd be able to, again, send this kind of message to the world, so to speak. Given that his friend actually turned it into authorities and didn't keep it, it's not clear how well that actually worked out for him. Very likely, again, this was something he submitted with the possibility that he would fail ahead of time. Now, just some details in this court document also. This court document does not list like the full breadth of evidence. The court document currently available, it's just the evidence the prosecutors submitted to support the case for pretrial detention, which they've now been granted, by the way. Ryan Routh is being held now without bail. Now, they note that the investigation is ongoing, so in addition to maybe these other letters we don't know about yet, we're going to be hearing a lot more on it. But it does give us a clearer picture of what happened on the golf course that day. Now, this is the official document. It says this, As the former president advanced through the course, a Secret Service agent was part of the overall protection detail, moved ahead of him in a golf cart, and conducted a security sweep to identify any potential threats and to ensure the safety and security of the former president along the route. And notice the perimeter of Trump International is surrounded by a chain link fence, and the southeast corner of the fence is screened by trees and brush. The 6th hole on the course is near the southeast corner, and while the former president was on the 5th hole, meaning he was pretty close to it, the agent cleared the area along the 6th hole. Again, they were one step away, right? And at approximately 1:30 p.m., the agent spotted the partially obscured face of a man in the brush along the fence line. The man was later identified, again, as Ryan Wesley Routh. Routh's position was directly in line with the 6th hole. Again, one ahead of where Trump was. And notice the agent then observed a long black object protruding through the fence and realized the object was the barrel of a rifle aimed directly at him. Meaning, again, he was pointing it at the agent, presumably. And once the agent jumped out of the golf cart, drew his weapon, and began backing away, the agent saw the rifle barrel move, suggesting they were maybe tracking him, and the agent fired at Routh. The agent took cover behind a tree, reloaded his weapon, looked up, and saw that Routh was gone. Now notice the position Routh occupied when the agent first noticed him was directly in line, again, with the 6th hole green. And had their agent not found him by that time, it's possible Trump would have been at that 6-hole green very soon. Again, this is important because this really shows how close this whole thing really was. Had that agent not noticed that gun, had that agent not seen the individual's face, maybe had the individual worn camouflage or painted his face, very likely, this whole thing could have ended a lot worse than it was. Now, also interestingly, the area where Routh was allegedly at, that area, that was a known blind spot. This was actually noted during the press conference just after the assassination attempt. And apparently, like media paparazzi, they actually use that location to take photos. It gives you a pretty broad view of that whole range. And, again, this is raising some concerns over, well, maybe they should have had additional security. Maybe they should have cleared those blind spots. We know that Routh, based on, again, other reporting, was there from about 1 a.m. to 1 p.m., like 12 hours. And an individual sitting in the bushes, pretty well exposed, generally speaking, you could have spotted him with some basic security in that area, especially if they knew, again, that the area was problematic. Now, we're also getting more details on the firearm he used, and this is important. First off, he did not have an automatic AK-47, as was reported by, I think, most media. The gun he was using was a semi-automatic SKS. That's like a hunting rifle, basically, right? It had a scope and an extended magazine. Now, again, the SKS and the AK-47, these are both kind of like Russian armaments. I'm not saying they're from Russia. These are weapons of war, technically, but there's a big difference between them. If you talk about an AK-47, that's what a lot of media would say is an assault weapon, right? And if you say it's automatic, well, that brings up the whole argument of, hey, automatic weapons and how does this individual get it? When you say an SKS, you're talking about what is really more like a hunting rifle, at least the way it's used. It had a scope on it, and presumably the reason why a lot of media said it was an AK-47 was because they saw the banana clip, right? They had a clip or a magazine that, bends, right? They call them banana clips. It was very likely because of that a lot of media mistook it for an AK-47. This is important, though, because, again, with the whole gun control argument, the way that these things are normally framed, this is a fundamental difference between a hunting rifle and an assault rifle. The individual had what would technically be a hunting rifle. But also that means it was more dangerous for the purpose he was possibly using it for, right? He had a scope on it. He was probably going to shoot a longer range shot. Anybody who's shot guns before knows that AK-47s are not necessarily that accurate at longer distances, just because of the way they're built and the way that, again, they reload. But when you're dealing with an SKS, it's much more accurate. And so this would have been actually a lot more dangerous given that. Now, the document says also that a civilian who was driving in the area saw Routh run to his vehicle. It says Routh made eye contact with him, and then Routh drove off at high speeds. The witness took photos of the back of the Nissan that he was driving, reported it, and also noted part of the license plate number. And the license plate is interesting.